Cole Mercer kicked up a cloud of ochre dust as he urged his hover bike over the jagged mesa road. The twin suns of Vera 9 burned low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the cracked canyon floor. He'd been riding for hours, the hum of his vehicle the only companion in the vast desert. Frontier work didn't pay much these days, but the isolation suited him. He liked the smell of the dry air, the crunch of stone beneath his tires, and the quiet knowledge that no lawman could reach him out here. Ahead, a jagged cliff jutted out from the canyon wall, and the faint glint of something metallic caught his eye. Cole slowed, squinting through the haze. It didn't belong to the landscape. A cage, or maybe chains, hung over the cliff's edge, anchored to rough-hewn posts carved into the sandstone. A low, rumbling growl reached his ears, vibrating through the desert air. Cole parked his bike on a nearby ledge and approached cautiously, hand hovering near his plasma revolver. His boots crunched over fractured rock, and every instinct screamed caution. When he crested the ridge, the sight made him halt. Caliph. The dragon, no, a full-grown Ethra, was chained, its crystalline scales catching the last rays of sunlight. Its wings were folded tight, the tips scraped raw against the metal bindings. Its eyes, brilliant, multi-hued, and far too intelligent for a wild beast, tracked him immediately. The growl deepened, almost pained, and the chains rattled as if they sensed his hesitation. 2 humans were tending the dragon. Their uniforms marked them as enforcers of Rax Velker's operation, black vests, reinforced gauntlets, and the kind of confidence only money and muscle could buy. One leaned casually against the cliff edge, adjusting a plasma whip, while the other inspected the shackles. Neither noticed Cole yet. He weighed his options. Frontiers weren't kind to heroes, and messing with Rax's people usually ended with a hole in the chest. But something in the dragon's gaze hit him: raw intelligence, despair, and the unspoken plea for help. Cole had seen dragons before, captured and sold for fighting rings or heavy labor, but he'd never seen one like this. Caliph radiated something different: sentience, awareness, almost reason. The enforcer with the whip muttered, "You hear that, Caliph? We've got another shipment coming in. Gonna make sure you behave." The dragon didn't respond, but its body tensed, wings twitching as though it were straining against invisible forces. Cole's jaw tightened. He could leave, vanish into the canyon, and live to ride another day. But the thought of Caliph suffering gnawed at him. The other enforcer noticed movement. "Hey! Who's there?" Cole froze, cursing himself for the lack of stealth in the open desert. He raised his hands, voice low but firm. "Name's Mercer. Just passing through. Don't want trouble." The enforcer laughed, a cruel bark. "Passing through? You're trespassing on Rax's claim. Step closer, and I'll introduce you to Caliph." Cole's heart raced. The whip snapped in a crack that echoed off the canyon walls. His hand hovered over the plasma revolver, yet a strange, sudden calm settled over him. He felt the dragon's eyes on him, not with fear, but calculation. Caliph tilted its head slightly, and then, to Cole's astonishment, it spoke. "Trust me." The words echoed in his mind, clear and commanding, and Cole froze. He hadn't heard a dragon speak, not like this, not with syntax or meaning. And yet there it was, 2 simple words, weighty with intent. His fingers itched toward the chains, his instinct screaming that he was meant to act. The enforcers noticed nothing, laughing and joking as they argued over maintenance of the chains. Cole edged closer, calculating. One move, one precise flick of his wrist, and he could disable the restraint. He had worked on security rigs, gates, and even smaller containment fields before, but this was different. This was a living, thinking creature relying on him to act. Cole crouched low behind a jagged rock. The plasma whip snapped again as the first enforcer tested the chain's strength. Cole waited for the right moment, breathing evenly despite the adrenaline prickling along his spine. Caliph's eyes never left him, unblinking, shimmering with confidence. Timing it perfectly, he surged forward, hand gripping the edge of the chain's control panel. Sparks hissed as his improvised tools jammed the locking mechanism. The enforcer turned just in time to see the lock fail and the chain shudder. "What the?" Caliph roared, a sound that shook the dust from the mesa walls, wings unfurling in a flash of crystalline light. The dragon leapt, freeing itself from the shackles, sending the enforcer sprawling to the ground. Cole dove aside as Caliph landed in a crouch, ready to take flight. The second enforcer scrambled for a weapon, but Cole was already running. He and Caliph moved in sync, instincts aligned. The dragon's wings caught the wind, lifting them partially into the canyon's draft. Together they threaded through jagged cliffs, dodging blaster fire and shattered rockfall. Cole risked a glance over his shoulder. The enforcers were shouting, but they couldn't keep up. He felt the oddest thing, a bond, electric and immediate, forming between him and the dragon. Caliph's gaze met his mid-flight, and the words repeated in his mind without sound, "Trust me." And he did. The desert wind tore past them as they disappeared into the twisting canyons, leaving Raxvelker's men behind, screaming in frustration. Cole's chest heaved, adrenaline pounding, but the fear that had gripped him moments ago was gone, replaced by something wilder: exhilaration, possibility, and the undeniable spark of a partnership that could change the frontier forever. They landed in a narrow canyon alcove. Caliph crouched low, shimmering faintly in the dusklight. Cole brushed dust from his coat and extended a hand. Caliph touched it with a claw, lighter than expected. No words were needed. The understanding was mutual. They were allies now, bound by choice, trust, and the promise of freedom. From the shadows above, the twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting the desert in fiery twilight. Out here, at the edge of law and civilization, a human and a dragon had just begun to rewrite the rules of the frontier. Cole crouched in the shadow of a jagged canyon wall, every muscle tense, his fingers still tingling from the escape. Caliph's wings folded neatly against its back, but the faint glow of its crystalline scales lit the alcove in pulses, almost like a heartbeat. The desert around them was silent now, the distant shouts of Rax's enforcers fading into the canyons behind. Cole's chest heaved, not from exhaustion but from the strange mix of fear and exhilaration coursing through him. "All right," he muttered, voice low, as if speaking aloud might shatter the fragile alliance they had just forged. "We need a plan." Caliph's gaze followed his movements, tilting its head. Its eyes reflected understanding, curiosity, and a calm intelligence that Cole had rarely seen in any living being. The canyon floor was littered with sharp stone and twisted metal from old mining equipment, relics of the frontier settlements that had tried and failed to tame this harsh land. Cole scanned the area, searching for any paths that could offer cover, escape routes, or vantage points. Caliph stirred beside him, the claws of one forefoot tapping the ground with measured precision. "You understand, don't you?" Cole asked, almost rhetorically. "I don't work with dragons. Never have. Not like this. But I trust you, Caliph. We're partners now, whether you like it or not." The dragon's scales shimmered brighter, as though acknowledging his words. Then it did something unexpected. It bent its head close to Cole, speaking softly, the sound almost melodic. "Fast." Cole frowned. "Fast?" "Leave," Caliph clarified. "Rax, pursuit. Too many. Not safe." Cole nodded, understanding instantly. Their window to escape was shrinking with every passing second. He slid a small, worn pack from his back, pulling out a grappling device, a few vials of emergency stimulants, and his plasma revolver. Caliph circled him once, low to the ground, muscles coiled, wings twitching like springs ready to snap. Cole caught the rhythm, syncing with it instinctively, as if some unspoken understanding had been etched into the air between them. They moved out. Caliph took the lead, gliding just above the canyon floor, wings barely brushing the stone. Cole followed, hoverbike abandoned in the alcove, their movements a mixture of speed and caution. The terrain twisted sharply, narrow corridors, sudden drops, and crumbling cliffs, but Caliph navigated it like it had grown up here. Cole had never seen any creature, human or alien, move with such precision. They paused briefly at a natural ridge, peering over a jagged precipice. Below, the canyon forked into two paths, one wide and exposed, the other narrow and shadowed. Cole's instincts screamed at him to take the narrow path. It was riskier in terms of speed, but safer in terms of detection. Caleth's gaze flicked to him, and then, almost imperceptibly, it nodded. The narrow route was treacherous. Loose stones slid underfoot, and the canyon walls closed in dangerously, forcing Cole to crouch low and lean into every turn. Caleth flew just above him, claws occasionally scraping the rock, wings folding tightly to avoid collision. Every few minutes, the dragon would pause, scanning, sniffing the air, its crystalline scales flickering like a heartbeat. Cole realized quickly that Caleth was not just physically aware but mentally calculating the threat level in real time. Hours passed, or maybe minutes, the desert warped time with its heat and light. Cole's stomach grumbled, reminding him of the supplies he had packed but not yet opened. He tossed a ration bar to Caleth, who caught it midair with surprising grace. The dragon didn't eat immediately but studied it, tasting the strange human food, and then nibbled. Cole smirked despite the tension. Good. At least you're adaptable. Caleth's glow pulsed faintly, almost like a chuckle. As night fell, the binary suns dipping below the horizon, the canyon darkened, and the desert cooled. Cole and Caleth found a shallow cave tucked into a cliffside. It was cramped but hidden, with a narrow entrance and smooth walls that would obscure them from aerial surveillance. Cole dropped to the floor, rubbing at his shoulders, every joint screaming from hours of tension. Caleth lowered its body, wings folding over its back, eyes still scanning the shadows. Cole studied the dragon, noting the patterns of light across its scales. "You're smarter than anyone I've met," he said. "And faster. And stronger. And, well, yeah. This is going to be interesting." Caleth blinked, tilting its head. Then it said simply, "Different." Cole chuckled softly. "Yeah. Different is good." A sudden noise echoed from the canyon mouth, a faint vibration, the scrape of rock against metal. Cole's hand instinctively went to his revolver, but Caleth's low rumble stopped him. "Wait," it said. "Small scouts. Not main force. Watching." Cole nodded, impressed. The dragon's awareness was staggering. "All right. So we hide, wait for them to pass, then continue." Caleth's wings flicked slightly in agreement. Hours passed with tense stillness. Cole leaned against the wall, thoughts spinning. He had freed Caleth, defying a powerful crime lord, and now they were fugitives together. Yet the bond between them was growing, silent but undeniable. He thought about the frontier, about law and order, or the lack of it, and realized that their partnership could change more than just their own survival. It could shift the balance of power on Vera 9. Caleth stirred, stretching its wings carefully in the dim light. "Tomorrow," it said. "Move. Cover longer distance." Cole nodded. "Tomorrow, we push forward. Together." The night deepened, and the cave settled into silence. Cole and Caleth rested side by side, human and dragon, predator and protector, fugitive and ally. Outside, the desert winds howled across the canyons, a constant reminder of the danger that lay ahead. But for now, in that fragile pocket of safety, the first threads of trust had been woven. And both of them knew that trust would be tested soon, harder than either could yet imagine. Time stretched and bled into the quiet hours. The twin stars had vanished, leaving only the cold light of distant suns and the faint glimmer from Caleth's scales. Cole felt the weight of the choice he had made, the choice to trust. And he felt, deep in his chest, the knowledge that whatever came next, they would face it together. Dawn crept over the jagged horizon, spilling amber light into the canyon where Cole and Caleth had sheltered. The desert stirred, wind teasing the loose stones and echoing faintly across the mesas. Cole stretched, every muscle stiff from the night spent crouched against stone, but there was no time to rest. Caleth rose beside him, wings unfurling in a graceful arc that caught the morning light. Its eyes glimmered, alert, scanning the canyon entrance for any sign of pursuit. "Ready?" Cole asked, voice low but firm. Calith's tail flicked once, sharply. Always, it replied. They moved cautiously, slipping through narrow passes and skirting the canyon edges. The desert around them was alive with distant movement, small packs of scavengers, glints of metal from other travelers, but none seemed aware of their presence. Calith's senses were far keener than Cole's, detecting vibrations in the sand, subtle changes in the air, even distant chatter from Rax's scouts. They approached a wide canyon fork. Cole hesitated, hand hovering over the pack on his back. Calith's gaze met his. Left. Safer. Less open. Cole nodded, trusting the dragon's instinct. They veered sharply into a twisting gorge, walls rising like sheer cliffs on either side. Loose stones rattled underfoot as they advanced, and the occasional screech of a hawk or wail of a desert predator reminded them that the wilderness was no less dangerous than human enemies. Hours passed. The sun climbed high, beating down with relentless heat. Cole wiped sweat from his brow, scanning the path ahead, and realized the canyon opened to a plateau. Here, they were exposed. The wind carried the faint scent of humans, scouts, most likely, but it also carried an unexpected scent, freedom. Calith's wings twitched in anticipation. Suddenly, a shimmer in the distance betrayed movement. A hover scout, Rax's colors unmistakable, skimmed low across the plateau, its sensors sweeping the canyon mouths. Cole ducked instinctively behind a rock outcropping. Calith crouched beside him, eyes narrowing, scales glinting as though charging with latent energy. "They'll see us if we move now," Calith whispered. Cole's mind raced. The plateau was too exposed for stealth. Too wide for a quick sprint. Yet the scouts were fast but predictable. He glanced at the dragon. "You got a plan?" Calith's crystalline head tilted. "Distract. I create path. You follow. No pause." Before Cole could question, Calith surged forward. Its wings beat the air with sudden force, creating a blinding spray of dust and sand. The hover scout faltered, sensors confused by the sudden whirlwind of light and motion. Cole seized the moment, sprinting along the narrow path Calith had cleared, boots skimming over rock and grit. The hover scouts recovered quickly, opening fire with energy pulses that sizzled past them. Cole dived into the shadows, feeling the heat of the blasts. Calith arced overhead, wings slicing the air, its body radiating a pulse of energy that sent the nearest hover scout careening off course. They threaded through the canyon mouth, leaping over broken stones, weaving past jagged cliffs, every movement synchronized, instinctive. At last, they reached a ridge that led to a narrow gorge veiled by overhanging rock. They paused, chests heaving, listening. The desert was silent except for the soft hiss of wind. Cole's hands shook slightly, and Calith's tail thumped against the stone in a mirrored rhythm. "You're incredible," Cole admitted, voice husky. "I don't think I could have done this without you." Calith regarded him solemnly. "Neither without you." They continued, navigating the gorge with cautious speed. The path narrowed until Cole had to walk in single file behind the dragon, his pack scraping against the walls. Calith's claws left faint impressions in the soft rock, and occasionally it would glance back to ensure Cole kept pace. Trust had become a living bond, palpable and unspoken, but Cole knew it was fragile. One mistake could cost them their freedom or their lives. Midday approached. The sun hung high, merciless, and they needed water. Cole spotted a small cave with a trickle of moisture, barely enough to moisten their throats. They ducked inside, the cool air a relief. Calith knelt, lowering its head to lap at the water, eyes never leaving the canyon entrance. Cole took a moment to rest, pulling a compact field scanner from his pack. Signals from Rax's scouts were scattered but active. They were being hunted. Not for sport, but for profit. Dragons were commodities, and he had just liberated the most valuable prey in the desert. Cole's jaw tightened at the thought. He had expected danger, sure, but this level of pursuit? It was more organized, more ruthless than he had anticipated. Caliph spoke softly, almost to itself. They learned fast. Too fast. Must move further, faster. Nightfall, safer. Cole nodded. He didn't need convincing. The desert was vast, but Rax's reach was longer than he had imagined. They had hours to gain distance, to outwit the trackers. Every step forward was a gamble, but the alternative, captivity for the dragon, and likely death for him, was unthinkable. They left the cave, moving through narrow passes that Caliph seemed to know instinctively. Dust and stone crunched underfoot. Shadows of the jagged cliffs stretched long, the wind carrying whispers of the canyon. Every twist, every ledge, every sudden drop was negotiated with silent coordination. They were no longer predator and prey, they were partners, a human and a dragon moving as one through a hostile world. As the afternoon wore on, the gorge widened into a sweeping valley. Cole paused, scanning for danger. Caliph landed beside him, wings folding neatly, eyes glinting. "We make camp here?" Cole asked. "Safe. Short rest. But watch." Caliph gestured with its head toward the ridges surrounding the valley. Faint shadows moved, scouts, but distant. Not a threat yet, but watching, calculating. Cole settled beside a cluster of rocks, feeling the weight of exhaustion pressing down. "You ever think about freedom?" he asked quietly. Caliph's gaze softened. "Always. But not alone." Cole smirked, tired but resolute. "Yeah. Not alone." The sun sank lower, painting the valley in gold and crimson. They rested, side by side, alert but unafraid for the moment. The desert was far from forgiving, and the path ahead would test them in ways neither had faced before. But for now, they moved forward together, bound by trust, necessity, and the unspoken promise that neither would fail the other. Night would come soon. And with it, the next challenge. Night had fallen like a curtain over the desert valley. Cole and Caliph crouched in the shadows of jagged rocks, the wind carrying faint whispers from distant ridges. Stars shone cold and sharp in the twin sunless sky, casting silvery light across the canyon floor. Cole's muscles ached, every step of the day leaving him stiff and raw, but there was no time to relax. Caliph's low rumble vibrated through the rock beneath them, a subtle warning that scouts were near. Cole tightened the straps on his pack, checking the contents of his improvised survival kit, a couple of ration bars, water vials, a small energy scanner, and a handful of emergency smoke grenades. He hadn't slept, hadn't stopped moving, but the adrenaline of the chase kept him sharp. Caliph shifted beside him, wings folding and unfolding in soft, rhythmic pulses, scales glimmering faintly like fractured glass in the starlight. "Scouts?" Cole asked, voice hushed. Caliph's head tilted, eyes scanning the ridges. "Two. Approaching from northwest. Not main force. Still distant." Cole nodded. "Good enough. We move fast, keep low, and we avoid them." They set off, threading through narrow canyons and jagged outcrops. The terrain demanded constant attention, one misstep could send them tumbling into jagged rock below. Caliph moved ahead, body low, wings tucked tightly, scanning the desert with uncanny precision. Cole followed, adjusting his pace to match the dragon's fluid, natural rhythm. Trust had formed between them in the silence of movement, each anticipating the other's reactions. Hours passed. The night air grew colder, dry, and biting against Cole's exposed skin. Their path led to a sheer cliffside that dropped into a hidden gorge, a natural funnel perfect for evasion. Cole studied the gorge, noting the sharp rocks and narrow ledges, calculating the risk. Caliph's head dipped slightly, indicating approval. "We jump," the dragon said softly. Cole's pulse quickened. "Jump? Together. Safe. Trust me." He swallowed hard and followed the dragon's lead. Caliph crouched, wings spreading in a wide, controlled sweep. Its crystalline scales reflected the starlight, creating an almost blinding shimmer as it leapt. Cole jumped after, gripping a makeshift harness Caliph had indicated with its tail earlier. The wind tore past them, the canyon walls rushing upward, and then Kalatha's wings caught the updraft, lifting them safely into the gorge below. They landed with a soft thud on a narrow ledge, rock-scraping boots and claws alike, but both unharmed. Cole's breath came in sharp, ragged gasps. "I swear, you just keep getting better," he muttered, leaning against the stone. Kalatha's eyes flickered briefly, a silent acknowledgement, and then it dipped its head to signal onward. The gorge narrowed further, twisting in impossible angles that would have slowed any ordinary traveler. Cole stumbled once, catching himself against the jagged wall. Kalath waited patiently, letting him regain balance before moving ahead. The dragon's knowledge of the desert was staggering, each twist of the canyon revealing paths hidden from human eyes, shortcuts that avoided potential ambush points, and shadows where even the faintest light of patrols couldn't reach. They paused at a sharp bend to catch their breath. The faint sound of engines hummed in the distance, Rax's patrols, but they were several clicks behind. Cole checked the horizon. The valley stretched wide, dotted with sparse desert flora and jagged mesas, but any attempt to sprint across it would leave them exposed. He glanced at Kalath, who was already scanning the path ahead with sharp, analytical eyes. "We need cover," Cole muttered. "Somewhere high or hidden. We can't keep running through open ground." Kalath's tail flicked, indicating a steep incline leading to a craggy overhang. "Climb. Faster. Then rest. Scout from above." Cole followed without hesitation. They scrambled over rocks, using every handhold and foothold, Kalath occasionally extending a claw to steady him over slick patches. The ascent was dangerous, but the dragon's instincts were precise, predicting every loose stone, every shift of wind that might tip a misstep. Cole's trust in Kalath had grown from instinct to certainty. He would follow the dragon anywhere. At last, they reached a plateau overlooking the valley below. The view revealed the desert stretched for miles, moonlight reflecting off sand dunes and jagged cliffs, faint glimmers of movement indicating scattered patrols, none aware of the hidden pair above. Cole exhaled, relief washing over him. Finally. Some breathing room. Kalath landed beside him, wings folding neatly. Short rest. Then move again. They regroup fast. Not safe long. Cole nodded, sitting down on a flat rock. He studied the dragon, noting how its crystalline scales refracted starlight into intricate patterns. "You've survived out here longer than most of them, haven't you?" Kalath's eyes softened. "Yes. Learned. Observed. Waited." Cole smiled faintly. "We've got time, then." "Not much, but enough. We move together, Kalath. That's the only way we get through this." The desert wind shifted, carrying a faint metallic scent, another patrol, but distant. Kalath's wings twitched, ready to launch. Cole checked his pack once more, making sure the energy scanner was charged, the small explosives secure. They had survived by instinct, by trust, and by a bond forged in the silence and chaos of the canyon. Night pressed in around them, the stars cold witnesses to their flight. Cole felt a quiet thrill, a sense of purpose that went beyond survival. Out here, at the edge of law and civilization, he and Kalath were no longer prey or predator. They were partners, strategists, and fugitives, bound by a choice made in trust and sealed by action. Cole glanced at the horizon. "We move at first light. Together." Kalath nodded, settling down beside him. "Together." The night deepened, wind carrying the whispers of the desert, and both waited, readying themselves for the next trial, the next escape, and the path that would lead them ever further from Raxvelker and closer to freedom. Dawn broke slowly over the canyon, painting the desert in shades of molten gold and violet. Cole stirred first, muscles stiff, joints aching from the climb and long hours of evasion. He rubbed at his shoulders, then glanced at Kalath, who was already awake, perched on the edge of the plateau, wings partially unfurled, eyes scanning the horizon with meticulous focus. The dragon's crystalline scales flickered in the morning light, throwing fractured patterns across the rocks. "Ready?" Cole asked quietly.
Kalitha's tail flicked once. Always, it said.
The word held no hesitation, no doubt, just certainty. They descended carefully into the valley below, keeping to narrow rock corridors and shadows where the rising sun could not expose them. The desert was alive with distant sounds, the faint hum of Rax's patrols, the skittering of desert fauna, and the whisper of wind through jagged cliffs. Every step was measured, every movement deliberate.
Cole had learned quickly that Kalitha's instincts were unparalleled. Following the dragon wasn't just a choice, it was survival.
By mid-morning, they reached a narrow canyon leading toward a cluster of mesas. The terrain was littered with jagged rocks, remnants of old mining operations, and abandoned shelters that hinted at the lives of humans who had attempted to tame the frontier before them. Kalith paused, crouched low, claws scraping the stone lightly. Cole halted as well.
"Scouts," he whispered.
"Close." "Too close," Kalith replied.
"They adapt." "Watch." Cole scanned the plateau.
Faint glints of metal and the soft hum of engines betrayed the presence of hover scouts. They were moving systematically, scanning the canyon mouths, likely searching for signs of the dragon and its companion.
Cole's chest tightened. One wrong move, and they would be surrounded.
He glanced at Kalith, whose eyes were calm yet piercing.
"We move fast," it said. "No hesitation." Cole nodded.
They surged forward, weaving between boulders and narrow ridges.
Kalith led, body low and wings tucked, moving like liquid over stone. Cole followed, boots scrambling over jagged rock, relying on the dragon's judgment for every twist and turn.
The canyon narrowed, forcing them into single-file movement.
Cole's breath came in sharp bursts, every sense alert.
Suddenly, a hover scout rounded the ridge ahead.
Its sensors glinted in the morning light. Cole froze, heart pounding, but Kalith acted instantly.
It crouched, claws gripping the stone, then released a low, resonant hum. The energy pulse from its crystalline body flared briefly, blinding the scout's sensors. The hovercraft faltered, engines sputtering, and Cole took the chance to sprint past, heart hammering. Kalith followed, wings catching a sudden updraft that lifted it slightly, allowing it to navigate over a fallen boulder that would have blocked any human path. They paused briefly in a narrow alcove, dust settling around them.
Cole's face was slick with sweat, throat dry, muscles screaming. "You're incredible," he said, voice husky.
Kalitha's eyes flickered softly.
"Not incredible. Necessary. Trust." Cole smiled faintly, a spark of camaraderie forming in the shared silence. They pressed on, moving through the twisting canyon until the walls opened to a hidden plateau.
The valley stretched wide, scattered with mesas and dry riverbeds, offering temporary respite from the narrow passes they had traversed.
Cole crouched behind a jagged boulder, scanning for threats. "Safe."
"Short rest," Kalith said, settling down beside him.
They regroup. "Patience. Observe."
Cole pulled a small field scanner from his pack, checking for heat signatures and movement. The readings confirmed Kalitha's assessment: distant patrols, still searching, unaware of their hidden vantage point. Cole allowed himself a shallow breath, rubbing his hands over the scanner as if it offered reassurance.
"We're not out of danger yet," he muttered. "But, we've survived the worst so far." Kalitha's gaze softened slightly. "We survived together. Strength and trust."
Cole studied the dragon, noting the subtle ways its crystalline scales reflected sunlight in shifting patterns.
"You're teaching me something, you know. Not just about the desert, but about choice. About relying on someone else."
Kalith dipped its head.
"Choice is freedom. Survival is cooperation. Only together." Cole nodded, the weight of understanding settling over him.
In the harsh, lawless expanse of Vera 9, trust was rare, and alliances rarer still. Yet here he was, relying on a creature stronger, faster, and far more intelligent than himself. He felt the bond deepen, unspoken but undeniable.
The hours passed slowly.
Cole scavenged a small patch of desert plants for water, sharing a portion with Caliph. The dragon accepted the sustenance but remained vigilant, tail flicking constantly, eyes scanning the plateau's edges. Cole admired the combination of raw power and intelligence, the careful balance between caution and action. Tomorrow, Caliph said softly, we move further.
Beyond. Too close for long. Safety is temporary. They learn. We must outpace. Cole exhaled, rubbing at his brow. I get it. And I trust you. Every step of the way. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the plateau. Cole and Caliph rested, muscles aching but minds sharp, preparing for the next leg of their escape. The desert around them was unforgiving, the hunt relentless, but the bond they had forged, the trust between human and dragon, was unbreakable. Night settled, stars reflecting faintly off Caliph's scales. Cole leaned back against a rock, eyes closing briefly, allowing a few minutes of rest. The wind carried distant echoes of engines, but for now, the valley was theirs. He felt the rhythm of Caliph's presence beside him, steady and unyielding. Survival depended on it. Freedom demanded it. And together, they would endure, outpace, and outwit anyone who dared pursue them. Cole's hand brushed lightly against the dragon's scaled foreleg. We've got this. Together. Caliph's tail thumped softly against the stone. Together. The night deepened, and both rested, alert yet unafraid, bound by choice, trust, and the knowledge that the path ahead was dangerous but conquerable. The first hints of dawn painted the horizon in muted oranges and purples, slipping slowly over jagged mesas. Cole stirred, muscles stiff but alert, every nerve tingling with the knowledge that Raxvelker's pursuit was relentless. Caliph had been awake for hours, crouched near the edge of the plateau, eyes sweeping the valley below with precise calculation. The dragon's crystalline scales flickered faintly with the first light, casting fractured patterns across the rocks. Cole had grown accustomed to reading those signals, subtle flashes that meant observation, assessment, or warning. Scouts moving closer, Caliph said softly, tail tapping in a measured rhythm against stone. They adapt. Faster than before. Not main force, but sufficient. Cole nodded, rising slowly. His pack felt heavier today, burdened not just with gear but with the knowledge of their pursuers' persistence. The desert had offered them shelter, but not safety, and he knew they couldn't afford complacency. Let's move, he muttered. Caliph's wings lifted in a smooth, practiced motion, signaling readiness. They descended carefully into the valley below, keeping to shadowed gullies and narrow rock formations. Cole's boots scraped against the sand and jagged stone, each step calculated to avoid detection. Caliph led, fluid and deliberate, wings tucked close to avoid accidental flashes of light that could betray their position. Trust had evolved into instinct, Cole anticipated Caliph's movements, and the dragon adjusted seamlessly to his pace. Mid-morning brought a sharp incline, a series of steep cliffs that funneled into a narrow canyon. Cole glanced ahead, the path was treacherous, loose stones shifting beneath every step, the walls closing in overhead. Caliph paused at the mouth of the canyon, eyes narrowing. Ambush likely, it said. Patrols know we passed. They predict path. Cole swallowed hard, scanning the rock faces. So we fight, or we find another route? Caliph's head tilted, crystalline scales flickering in the morning light. Neither. Trick. Use path to advantage. Lure scouts into canyon bend. Trap. Cole's pulse quickened. The dragon's plan was audacious, dangerous, but he trusted Caliph implicitly. They advanced slowly, moving as one. The narrow canyon amplified sound, every step echoing against stone. Cole's hand hovered near his plasma revolver, ready for sudden confrontation, while Caliph's claws scraped silently over the rocks, preparing the ambush. As they reached the bend, faint whirring and the glint of metal announced the scouts' approach. Two hover scouts glided low, sensors scanning, unaware of the trap ahead. Cole crouched, gripping a rock, eyes flicking to Caliph. The dragon's body coiled like a spring, wings brushing the stone in anticipation.
On Calith's subtle signal, Cole sprang, throwing a small smoke grenade into the canyon bend. The thick, white vapor erupted instantly, filling the narrow passage.
The scouts faltered, engines whining as they tried to compensate.
Calith leapt, claws raking stone, wings unfurling in a controlled sweep that sent dust and debris flying.
One hovercraft spun off balance, engines sputtering.
Cole darted forward, firing his plasma revolver in calculated bursts, disabling sensors and creating chaos without causing destruction that could trap them.
The scouts scrambled, disoriented and confused.
Calith's roar echoed through the canyon, a sound that reverberated off the walls and shook the very air. The second scout tried to regain control, but the combined assault of Cole's sharpshooting and the dragon's presence forced it into retreat.
Cole felt the thrill of the moment, adrenaline surging, but he didn't celebrate.
The danger was ongoing, and Raxvelker's forces would return. Once the scouts were gone, Calith landed softly, wings folding over its back.
Temporary victory.
Main force still active, it said, voice low and measured.
Cole wiped sweat from his brow, chest heaving. Yeah, I figured. They'll regroup. And they'll be smarter next time. Calith's gaze softened. Then we must move. Distance. Concealment. Time is advantage. Cole nodded, scanning the horizon. Ahead lay a series of mesas forming a natural labyrinth. It offered cover and elevated vantage points, ideal for observation and continued evasion.
He gestured toward them.
Then we take the labyrinth. Keep moving until they lose us. The trek was grueling. They climbed narrow paths, leapt over fractured rock, and navigated hidden alcoves, Calith's knowledge of the terrain guiding every choice.
Cole realized with growing respect that the dragon wasn't just physically superior, its intelligence, foresight, and tactical thinking exceeded that of any human he had encountered.
Midday found them resting briefly on a small plateau.
Cole drank sparingly from his water supply while Calith crouched nearby, eyes scanning the valley. Silence hung between them, punctuated only by the distant hum of the desert wind.
Cole finally spoke, voice low. We've done well, but I keep thinking, if Rax catches us, it won't end well for either of us.
Calith tilted its head, crystalline scales flickering. Then we remain unpredictable.
Adopt. Trust. Together.
Cole felt the weight of the words, understanding that their bond was more than survival, it was strategy, a living, moving coordination that gave them an edge no ordinary human or dragon could possess alone. He reached out, brushing lightly against Calith's foreleg.
All right. Together, he said. As the sun climbed toward its zenith, they set off again, weaving through the mesas. The desert stretched endlessly, shadows twisting across rock faces, concealment hiding their passage from distant pursuers.
Every movement, every choice, was a careful balance between speed and stealth, between trust and instinct and reliance on each other. Cole realized, with a mixture of awe and determination, that their survival depended not just on strength or cunning, but on the bond that had formed between man and dragon. And it was that bond that would carry them forward, across the harsh frontier, into the unknown challenges that awaited. The desert wind rose, carrying the scent of dust and distant engines, a reminder that the hunt was far from over. Cole glanced at Calith, eyes meeting, silent acknowledgement passing between them. They moved as one, ready for whatever lay ahead, bound by trust, necessity, and the unyielding determination to remain free. The afternoon sun cast long shadows over the labyrinthine mesas, turning the jagged cliffs into a maze of golden shadow. Cole moved carefully, boots crunching over fractured stone as he followed Calith through narrow passages and hidden gullies. Every twist of the terrain was calculated, every ledge a potential vantage point or a trap. The dragon's crystalline scales shimmered in the sunlight, reflecting fragmented light across the canyon walls, a subtle signal that Cole had learned to read instinctively. Patrol still on our tail, Calith murmured, tail tapping against the rock in a steady rhythm.
They adapt. Predict. We must outthink.
Cole adjusted his pack, gripping his plasma revolver tightly.
Then we outsmart them. Again. His jaw tightened.
They had evaded scouts, disrupted patrols, and navigated the desert's harsh terrain, but he knew the main force would be smarter, faster, and more relentless. Survival demanded strategy, coordination, and the seamless partnership they had forged. They reached a narrow canyon that opened into a series of jagged plateaus. From above, Cole could see the valley floor stretching wide, dotted with scattered mesas and dry riverbeds. Hover scouts moved like metallic ants below, their sensors sweeping systematically. Caleth crouched low, eyes narrowing.
Timing. Movement.
Precision, it whispered. We strike shadows, not bodies.
Confuse. Divide. Cole nodded. All right. I follow your lead.
The plan unfolded with meticulous precision. Caleth's body coiled like a spring, wings tucked, tail flicking in measured intervals. As they advanced, the dragon used subtle movements to manipulate light and shadow, sending glints across rock faces that drew the scouts' attention.
Cole moved in sync, darting between cover points, creating the illusion of multiple paths, multiple threats. The patrols reacted, splitting their attention, their formations faltering.
At a critical bend, Caleth unleashed a controlled roar, resonating through the canyon walls. The sound reverberated, disorienting the scouts and causing one of the hovercrafts to swerve violently. Cole fired precise bursts from his revolver, targeting sensor arrays rather than engines, creating confusion without destruction that could endanger their escape.
The combined effort of man and dragon was seamless, instinctive, and devastatingly effective. One scout tried to flank them from a high ledge. Caleth's eyes tracked the movement, body coiling before springing upward.
With a powerful sweep of its wings, it generated a gust that knocked the hovercraft off balance.
Cole seized the opening, sprinting along a narrow ledge and launching a small EMP charge that disabled the remaining sensors.
The scout spiraled away, engines sputtering, while Caleth glided effortlessly above, landing with precision on a rocky outcrop. Cole crouched beside the dragon, chest heaving, adrenaline surging. That was close.
Caleth's gaze met his, unwavering and calm. We are effective together. Trust in action must be equal. Cole nodded, understanding.
The desert had been unforgiving, the pursuit relentless, but their coordination had turned potential defeat into temporary dominance.
Yet he knew better than to celebrate. Raxvelker's main force would arrive, more organized, more dangerous, and far less predictable than scattered scouts.
They continued through the labyrinth, taking higher ground and moving along hidden ridges.
Every plateau offered vantage points for observation and potential ambush, and Caleth's intelligence in reading the terrain was unmatched.
Cole followed each signal, each flicker of light across the dragon's scales, every subtle movement, learning to anticipate threats before they emerged.
By late afternoon, they reached a secluded ravine with jagged overhangs providing cover from aerial sensors. Cole crouched behind a boulder, scanning for signs of pursuit. Caleth lowered its body beside him, wings folded tightly. Rest. Short. Vigilant. They adapt fast, it said. Cole drained a small water vial, wiping sweat from his brow.
I don't think I could have done any of this without you, he admitted quietly. The dragon's head tilted, scales shimmering in acknowledgement. Nor I without you, Caleth replied. Trust is action, not words. We survive because we act together, anticipate, adjust. Cole studied the dragon, realizing how much their bond had grown in a matter of days. The trust was no longer fragile, it was instinctual. They moved as one, human and dragon, predator and strategist, partner and ally. He could feel it in the rhythm of their movements, the subtle communication in gestures and glances, and the mutual understanding that any hesitation could cost their lives. As the sun dipped low, casting crimson light across the ravine, distant engine hums echoed faintly, a reminder that Raxvelker's forces were still active. Caleth's wings twitched in readiness, eyes scanning every shadow, every ridge. Cole's hand brushed against the dragon's foreleg, a silent affirmation of unity. Tomorrow, Caleth said, voice low, we continue. Outpace. Outsmart.
We must reach terrain where they cannot follow easily. Cole exhaled, feeling the weight of both exhaustion and determination. I trust you. Always, he said. Kaletha's tail flicked softly, a subtle pulse that resonated through the rock. Together, it confirmed. Night fell, and the desert settled into a muted, watchful silence. Cole and Kaleth crouched side by side, alert yet at ease in the momentary safety of the ravine. The pursuit was far from over, the dangers relentless, but the bond they had forged, the trust, the instinctive coordination, and the unspoken understanding, was their greatest advantage. Together, they would continue forward, navigating the perilous frontier, outsmarting those who hunted them, and surviving against all odds. The stars emerged, cold and brilliant, casting fractured light on Kaletha's scales. Cole leaned back against a rock, exhaustion pressing down, yet a quiet thrill surged through him. Out here, at the edge of law and civilization, human and dragon had become more than allies, they were a force that could not easily be defeated. And together, they would face whatever came next. The desert night was unusually still, the wind reduced to a faint whisper over the jagged mesas. Cole crouched on the edge of a narrow plateau, boots scraping against loose stone, eyes scanning the valley below. Kaleth crouched beside him, wings folded tightly, crystalline scales reflecting the dim starlight in fractured patterns. The silence was deceptive. Somewhere in the distance, faint hums of Rax's patrols cut across the desert air, sensors sweeping systematically, unaware of the hidden pair above. Cole tightened the straps on his pack, checking the remaining supplies. Water was low, rations were minimal, and every movement forward increased the risk of detection. We need a path through the mesas, he murmured. Something they won't anticipate. Kaletha's eyes flickered toward him. Maze. Complex. Path hidden from sensors. Few can navigate without knowledge. We have advantage. Cole nodded. The labyrinthine mesas offered not just concealment, but opportunity, a chance to split pursuers, mislead them, and gain distance. Kaleth led, moving low and silent, claws barely scraping stone. Cole followed, heart pounding, adrenaline sharpening every sense. Trust had become instinctual, he moved as the dragon anticipated, wings brushing close to avoid accidental flashes, each step synchronized. Hours passed in tense silence. The moonlight cast long, narrow shadows across the canyon walls, and Cole adjusted his position, feeling the weight of the desert pressing against them. The labyrinth of mesas twisted unpredictably, and Kaleth guided him through paths that seemed impassable at first glance. Loose rocks shifted beneath their feet, but the dragon's instincts never failed. Every ledge, every crevice, every potential trap had been calculated. A sudden flicker of movement caught Cole's eye, a scout descending a distant ridge. Kaleth crouched, tail flicking against stone in a silent signal. Small group. Not main force. Observe. Wait. Cole nodded, flattening himself against the rock. The scouts moved methodically, unaware that they were walking into a subtle pattern of diversion. Kaletha's crystalline scales shimmered faintly, reflecting starlight in a fractured signal only Cole could interpret. They waited, coiled in anticipation, letting the scouts approach. When the hover scouts entered the narrow corridor ahead, Kaleth moved with deliberate grace, claws scraping stone, wings unfurling in a controlled sweep. The dust and rock shifted, creating a sudden cloud that obscured sensors. Cole seized the moment, darting between shadows, using small EMP charges to temporarily blind instruments, and firing precise bursts at sensor arrays without damaging the craft. The scouts faltered, confusion spreading through their ranks. Kaletha's roar followed, reverberating off canyon walls, a sound that shook the air and startled the hovering patrols. One scout attempted a flanking maneuver from above, but the dragon's eyes tracked it instantly. With a fluid leap, Kaleth swept a wing, generating a gust that forced the scout to correct, engines sputtering in disarray. Cole sprinted past, keeping low, boots gripping loose rock. The coordination was instinctive, silent, and perfectly timed. Once the scouts were misdirected and disoriented, Kaleth landed softly on a narrow ledge above them. Temporary advantage. Not end. Must continue. Cole exhaled, wiping sweat from his brow, adrenaline still pumping. Yeah. I know. They'll be back. Kalitha's gaze was steady. We adapt. Predict. Outpace. Distance is protection. Cole studied the dragon, feeling the depth of their bond. It was no longer a partnership built merely on necessity, it was instinctive, unspoken, a coordination of mind, body, and trust. Each movement, each glance, each subtle shift in stance communicated volumes. They had become a single force, human and dragon, predator and strategist. They advanced deeper into the labyrinth, taking elevated ridges that offered both observation and concealment. The terrain grew more treacherous, steep cliffs and jagged overhangs demanding careful footwork. Cole followed Kalitha's lead, trusting every step, every instinct. The desert below stretched endlessly, shadows moving across mesas like the ghost of some ancient conflict. By the pre-dawn hours, they found a sheltered alcove in a high mesa. Cole crouched, boots scraping the stone as he checked their surroundings. Kalith settled beside him, wings folding over its back, crystalline scales catching the faint glow of distant stars. Rest. Brief. Vigilant, it said softly. Cole drained a small water vial, sharing a portion with the dragon. The silence between them was comfortable, filled with mutual understanding and the quiet acknowledgement of what they had accomplished and what lay ahead. Tomorrow, we push further, he murmured. Kalitha's head tilted. Distance. Secrecy. Outpace. Survival requires foresight. Together. Cole nodded, feeling the rhythm of Kalitha's body beside him, the pulse of its crystalline scales, the weight of their bond. Together, he agreed. The night deepened, stars sharp and cold above, the desert wind carrying faint echoes of distant engines. Cole leaned against a rock, letting exhaustion wash over him, yet his mind remained alert, tuned to the dragon's subtle signals. Trust, instinct, and coordination had carried them this far. The hunt was far from over, but the bond they shared, the unspoken promise of unity and survival, would guide them through the dangers ahead. As darkness yielded to the faintest glimmer of dawn, Cole and Kalith rested, side by side, alert yet secure in their alliance, ready to navigate the treacherous desert paths and outwit any pursuers who dared follow. The sun rose pale over the jagged mesas, casting long, fractured shadows across the labyrinthine desert. Cole stirred, joints aching, muscles stiff from days of constant movement, yet adrenaline kept him sharp. Kalith had been awake for hours, perched on a narrow ledge, wings partially spread, eyes scanning the horizon. Its crystalline scales flickered in the early light, reflecting tiny prisms of fractured color across the rocks. Main force approaches, Kalith said softly, tail tapping in a deliberate rhythm. They anticipate. Seek to corner. Strategy required. Cole tightened the straps on his pack, checking the remaining supplies. Water was low, energy rations almost gone, and the landscape ahead offered both opportunity and danger. All right, he muttered. Let's make them work for it. They moved cautiously through the narrow passages between mesas, Kalith leading, body low, wings tucked. Cole followed, every step measured, boots scraping loose stones, careful not to alert any distant patrols. Their trust had become instinctive, each knew the other's rhythm, predicting movements and adjusting seamlessly to the terrain. By mid-morning, they reached a wide canyon that funneled into several narrow forks. Cole paused, scanning the landscape. Below, he could see the glint of metal from hover scouts moving methodically, sensors sweeping the paths. Kalith crouched, eyes narrowing. Divide. Confuse. Lead. Cole understood immediately. The dragon's plan required precision, separate the pursuers, mislead them, and create distance for escape. They slipped into a hidden fork, Kalith moving like liquid over jagged rock, Cole following, boots gripping every uneven surface. Loose stones shifted beneath them, but Kalitha's instincts were flawless, predicting each potential misstep. A faint hum announced approaching scouts. Kalitha's crystalline scales shimmered subtly, signaling to Cole the timing of the ambush.
The narrow canyon amplified sound, every movement echoing, every footfall a potential warning.
Cole crouched low, preparing his small EMP charges while Caliph readied itself. When the scouts entered the fork, Caliph acted. It released a low, resonant hum, creating vibrations that confused sensors and sent dust swirling through the canyon. Cole fired precise bursts at sensor arrays, temporarily disabling instruments without causing catastrophic damage. The hovercrafts faltered, engines whining as they struggled to recalibrate. Caliph leapt, wings unfolding in a controlled sweep that kicked up debris, forcing one scout to swerve violently. Cole darted past, timing each movement to coincide with the dragon's maneuvers. The coordination was instinctive, silent, and devastatingly effective. One scout attempted a flanking maneuver from above, but Caliph's eyes tracked it instantly. With a sudden leap and sweep of a wing, the scout's trajectory was disrupted, engines sputtering. Once the scouts were misdirected and disoriented, Caliph landed on a narrow ledge above, watching as the patrols regrouped, unsure of where the threats had come from. Temporary advantage, it said. Not end. Must continue. Cole exhaled, muscles quivering from tension and exertion. Yeah. I know. They'll adapt. They'll be smarter next time. Caliph's gaze remained calm, analytical. We must outpace. Outthink. Use terrain. Knowledge is advantage. Cole studied the dragon, realizing how inseparable their bond had become. It was no longer merely partnership born of necessity, it was coordination, instinct, and trust, a synchronized force. Each subtle signal, flicker of light across Caliph's scales, or tap of its tail conveyed vital information. Survival had become a dance, one they performed together flawlessly. They moved deeper into the labyrinth, taking higher ground that offered both observation and concealment. The terrain grew more jagged, cliffs and crevices demanding precision. Cole followed Caliph's lead, adapting instinctively to every movement. The desert below stretched endlessly, shadows shifting like living things, a constant reminder of the hunters pursuing them. By late afternoon, they found a sheltered plateau atop a high mesa. Cole crouched, scanning the surrounding ridges while Caliph settled beside him, wings folded, crystalline scales catching the waning sunlight. Rest. Brief. Vigilant, it said softly. Cole shared the last of their water, keeping a portion for Caliph. The desert silence wrapped around them, broken only by the distant hum of patrols. Tomorrow, Cole murmured, we push further. Find terrain they can't easily follow. Caliph's head tilted, eyes reflecting understanding. Distance. Concealment. Outpace. Survival demands foresight. Together. Cole placed a hand on the dragon's foreleg. Together, he said, voice steady despite exhaustion. The sun dipped lower, shadows stretching long across the mesa. The desert wind shifted, carrying distant echoes of engines, a reminder that the hunt was far from over. Cole felt the rhythm of Caliph beside him, the pulse of its crystalline scales, and the strength of the bond that had carried them through danger, through pursuit, and through uncertainty. As the first stars emerged in the darkening sky, Cole and Caliph crouched together, alert yet secure in the momentary safety of the plateau. Trust, instinct, and coordination had carried them this far, and they both knew that their greatest advantage was the bond they shared. Bound by necessity, honed by survival, and strengthened by choice, they were ready to face the final challenges that awaited in the desert frontier. The night deepened, and the desert held its breath. Cole and Caliph rested, side by side, prepared for whatever came next, their unity and trust a force that even the relentless pursuit of Raxspelker could not easily overcome. The first light of dawn stretched across the horizon, turning the desert mesas into sharp silhouettes against a soft violet sky. Cole crouched on a high ledge, scanning the valley below with Caliph beside him, wings partially spread, eyes alert. This was the final stretch. Raxspelker's main force had tracked them relentlessly, but the desert labyrinth, their strategy, and the unbreakable bond between human and dragon had carried them this far. Cole checked his pack one last time. Rations nearly gone, water almost depleted, but the essentials intact.
The horizon shimmered with heat and distance, and somewhere out there lay freedom, a place where they could finally breathe without constantly watching for sensors or patrols. Kalitha's crystalline scales caught the morning light, scattering fractured colors across the rock.
"Ready?" Cole asked quietly. Kalitha's tail flicked once. "Always." Final path. Precision. Outpace.
They descended carefully into a narrow canyon that led toward the outer mesas, the landscape opening gradually into a wide, sparsely vegetated plain. Cole felt his pulse quicken. The final pursuit would demand every ounce of skill, instinct, and coordination they had developed.
Caliph moved ahead, fluid and deliberate, signaling the safest path while reading the terrain like a living map. Cole followed, trusting implicitly, each step synchronized with the dragon's movements.
Halfway across the plain, distant hums of engines signaled the arrival of Rax Velker's main force.
Cole crouched low behind a jagged rock, eyes scanning. Hovercrafts glinted in the sun, sensors sweeping systematically, unaware of the trap Caliph had prepared.
The dragon's head tilted, eyes flashing intelligence and calculation.
Divide. Distract. Escape. Timing is everything, it murmured. Cole nodded. He knew their plan: split the pursuers, mislead them, and create enough distance to reach a natural choke point where escape was possible. Caliph leapt onto a small outcrop, wings unfolding in a controlled sweep, casting dust and rock into the air. Cole sprinted between cover points, small EMP charges temporarily blinding sensors, plasma revolver disabling key instruments without causing structural damage. Hovercrafts faltered, engines whining as they tried to recalibrate.
One of the larger scouts attempted to flank from a ridge, but Kalitha's roar erupted across the plain, shaking the air and startling the pilots. The dragon leapt from its perch with precision, wings beating strongly, creating gusts that forced the scout into a sharp, unstable turn. Cole darted past, timing each movement to coincide with the dragon's maneuvers. The coordination was seamless, instinctive, and devastatingly effective. Once the pursuit faltered, Caliph and Cole raced across the open plain, heading for a narrow canyon that led into the final plateau. The dragon's knowledge of the terrain gave them an unassailable advantage, and Cole's trust in every movement and calculation made them unstoppable. Behind them, hovercraft struggled to regain formation, delayed and misdirected by the traps and diversions they had laid. As they reached the plateau's edge, Cole looked out over the horizon, a hidden valley beyond, lush with rare desert flora, a natural fortress shielded from sensors and patrols. He exhaled, a surge of relief and exhilaration washing through him. Caliph landed beside him, wings folding neatly, scales glittering in the morning light. "Safe." Finally, the dragon said softly. Cole crouched, leaning against the rock, feeling the exhaustion of days of flight and evasion. "We did it," he whispered. "We actually did it." Caliph lowered its head, eyes meeting his. "Because we trusted. Together. Bond stronger than pursuit, than fear." Cole reached out, brushing a hand across the dragon's crystalline foreleg. The connection between them was more than survival, it was understanding, loyalty, and choice. "Together," he repeated. Below, the desert stretched endlessly, the sounds of pursuit fading into distance. Rax Velker's forces would regroup, but the path ahead for Cole and Caliph was now theirs alone. They had outsmarted, outpaced, and survived. More than that, they had forged a bond that could redefine what it meant to navigate the frontier, a partnership that combined instinct, intelligence, and trust in a way no law or patrol could break. Cole smiled, eyes bright with the thrill of freedom and the quiet certainty of companionship. "I think we've earned this," he said. Kalitha's tail flicked in acknowledgement, the gesture gentle and deliberate. The valley before them offered not just refuge but a promise, a place to rest, to strategize, and to live on their terms. The harsh desert behind them had tested their limits, sharpened their instincts, and solidified their trust. Now, with the horizon wide and the air clear, the possibilities felt endless. Caliph lifted into the air briefly, wings catching the light as it glided in a slow circle above the plateau. Cole followed,
eyes tracing its movement, heart steady with calm resolve.
They were no longer hunted, no longer prey, they were a force forged through adversity, bonded by choice and action. Together, human and dragon stepped toward the hidden valley, each footfall and claw mark a testament to survival, trust, and partnership. The desert wind carried their passage forward, and for the first time in days, Cole allowed himself to feel hope, exhilaration, and a quiet joy. The horizon glimmered, freedom stretching wide before them. The chase was over. Their journey had transformed them, bound them, and prepared them for the frontier that awaited. Cole and Caliph moved side by side, human and dragon, partners and friends, stepping into a future defined not by fear or pursuit, but by trust, courage, and the strength of their bond. The sun rose fully, casting the desert in gold, and together they crossed the plateau's edge, wings and boots carrying them toward the life they had fought for, toward freedom, and toward the next adventure that awaited on the wide, untamed frontier.